So I'm going to talk about what a typical day or week looks like in the life of a company driver that is over the road and pulls a dry van. So you're typically working 70 hours a week at least. And that might sound daunting, but majority of that time you're just driving down the road, down the interstate probably. And this doesn't apply to regional or local, where you just, well, I'll talk about that in a second. The typical day for an over-the-road national driver is you work about 9.5 hours a day. Let's say on average 9 of those hours you're driving. That's pretty average. That other half an hour, you're doing your pre-trip, you're doing your post-trip, you're doing customer check-in, check-out, which these are all easy things. However, I said 9.5 hours on duty. You might spend 2.5 hours off duty getting loaded or unloaded. That's not unusual. The typical loading unloading process takes about an hour, although it can take anywhere between 40 minutes and 4 hours. Average is about an hour. And the time that you are getting loaded or unloaded, you're sitting in your truck, you're doing whatever you want in your truck, and that those hours or that time doesn't count towards that 9.5 that I mentioned earlier. But when you're sitting in your truck waiting for them to load you or unload you, you're more often than not waiting for the light to turn green. You're waiting for the dock light to turn green, which means is they're done loading you or they're done unloading you or loading you. And you go back in and do the customer check-in or check-out process. So you're working in as much as you're watching that red or green light. You know, you look at it every 5-10 minutes or whatever. Or you just wait till you feel your truck stop shaking from them loading your trailer or unloading it, and then you look at it to see if it's green. So in that sense you're working. So you can't just, go for a walk for 2 hours or something. You can take a nap, but what I do is I usually set an alarm for like half an hour or 45 minutes and check the light and snooze and then check it every time the snooze goes off. So in that sense, you're working, 10.5 hours a day. You're only allowed to drive as much as 11 hours a day. Some days you will work more hours, like 12.5 hours. But a 70-hour week isn't really that bad because it just doesn't feel like you're working most of the time. You're just driving down the road. You're just waiting for the light to turn green or red. You're just doing your pre-trip. You're just fueling. You're just doing customer check-in and check-out. It's not physically demanding at all. The only thing that's physically demanding about this job is the trailer crank for your landing gear. Sometimes it can be a bitch, and sometimes you have to really exert yourself. Typically, it's not that bad. Um, so it's literally the easiest job I've ever had, and I've done a little bit of everything. I've done landscaping. I've done construction. I've done fast food. I've done retail. Um, and each of those jobs paid less and were a lot more work than this. The thing about this job is you just have to be a good driver. I mean, that's a big part. That's a big thing. Majority of the job is just driving safe and not hitting anything and not killing anybody. You have to be patient. Otherwise, you're going to be stressed the hell out. There's deadlines. You have appointments sometimes. And you have to... It's a big part of it is time management. And oftentimes, if a job isn't physically demanding, it's intellectually demanding or just stressful in general. Like being a manager somewhere, it's not for me. It's just it's not physically demanding. I won't even say it's intellectually demanding. It's just stressful. And it depends on who you are too. How you handle, stressful situations. But this job can be stressful. You're trying to meet your deadlines. You're trying to find a place to park. You're trying to determine whether you can make this turn without hitting anything or hogging other lanes, or you're just driving in traffic a lot. It's a really nice job. It's decent pay, even right out of the gate. I'm only 5 months in, and it's decent pay, but I expect it to get better. It's kind of another thing. You sleep in a different spot every night, so in some sense that can be stressful. In another sense, it's kind of exciting, or keeps things interesting. I kind of like that nomadic, minimalistic life where you're just surviving on... You're not living very luxuriously. You're eating hot dogs, and it's kind of like camping. You don't have a shower, you don't have a toilet, you don't have an oven to cook food. All I got is a little cooler and a heated bed. I got air conditioning too, but in a lot of ways, it's like camping. Another stressful part, if you want to call it stress, is being away from friends and family. It's difficult to have a social life. If you're the kind of person that likes to party with friends every weekend, you don't want to be over the road national. You're going to want to be either local or regional. But the thing about local and regional is they do work 12 plus hours a week, a day. Whereas over the road, it's only 9.5. So over the road is more laid back in the sense of the time frame and hours worked in a day. But because regional and local only work 5 to 6 days a week, they try to time crunch it all in those days. So they work 12 plus hours. And they're going over the same routes. Local is at least, the same few routes over and over again. It can get pretty monotonous. But yeah, the social life. You have to be okay with being by yourself for extended periods of time. The shortest amount of time you can be out on the road with this company is 11 days, which earns you 3 days home. I'm going to try, and you can stay out as long as you want, you know. I've heard of people staying out for 6 months at a time. But in order to do that, you have to be okay with being by yourself for extended periods of time. You have to not go insane by being in a truck all day. You know? And what I try to do is I try to make my truck as homely as possible. You know, uh, recently I brought my electric guitar in here, which was one of the things that made me miss home, was playing my electric guitar and writing music. So I'm trying to bring that here. But I have to run it through the battery of the truck, which is like, it's direct current, and you're not supposed to run electric guitar on direct current, so my tone sounds weird and fuzzy and crackly and shit like that. It's tough to have a healthy diet on the road. For example, it's healthy to drink a lot of water. Well, if you drink a lot of water out here, you need to stop and piss more often, and stopping and taking a piss takes up a lot of time, and you just don't have a lot of time a lot of the time. But another thing about over the road, like I said, it's more relaxed compared to regional and local. You have more time to just think when you're over the road. You have so much time to think. And me, I like contemplation. I like reflection. I like meditation, you know? I'm not one of those people that get antsy or lonely when I haven't seen a friend in a while. I'm kind of independent in that way. I remember thinking that I could never be a truck driver just because the maneuverability or lack thereof of a big rig. You know, I didn't like the idea of, you know, just maneuvering this big fucking thing on the roads. And like finding a parking spot and shit like that. But it's really something that you'll get over, and when you do it enough. Like I remember my first couple weeks of school, CDL school. I was nervous as hell. Like my first day on the road driving that thing, it was a stick. But not only did it make it more difficult because it was a stick, a 10-speed, but just that your big ass end, your trailer, your tandems, they off track. Really easy to hit a curb. It's really easy to hit a sign or, you know, hit anything on the sidewalk. It's really easy. But once you get over that, it's a rather relaxed job. And yeah, there's a lot of risk. You can literally easily just slaughter a family of 6 with just by a small error. But it's the probability for error decreases over time because you become a more experienced and qualified driver. Um, and I won't say I'm completely over it. I still get nervous, on tight local roads. I think everybody does, even experienced drivers. If it's a route you're not familiar with, you know. Sometimes you depend on other people yielding to you to get where you need to go. Like sometimes I'll just be taking a turn in town on a local road, and I'll commit to the turn. Halfway in the turn, a car pulls up, and if they pull up all the way, they're going to be in my way, even though I'm in their lane, because you literally have to borrow other people's lanes sometimes to complete a turn. So sometimes you have to hog lanes, and sometimes people just have to yield to you, even though you're in their lane. And had this guy not yielded to me, I just, what are you gonna do? He's just got to yield to me. So you're at the mercy of a lot of the other drivers, and it helps that you're a big, scary truck because they will yield to you because they don't want to fucking die.